So today, ladies and gentlemen, we are in Papi, finally, Courtney Pierce's V6 Mustang. This is a 2014 Mustang V6. It has a Vortec V3 blower. Car makes 441 wheel horsepower, so it's definitely no slouch. The good thing is with the V6 up front, you have a lighter nose. So when you go on a back road cruise like I am now, it feels much lighter and much easier to handle. The car is an automatic, but when you get into the automatic, if you're just kind of big towing into it, the transmission is kind of like, do I shift or do I not? Because with the tune and everything else, with the amount of boost you're pushing, it just kind of can't make up its mind at first. But then later, as soon as you get into it, it knows exactly what it wants to do. The axle backs on this car are actually from a previous owner's car named Keith Fedora, and basically it's just an axle back system, so from the headers to the cast, everything else, it's stock. But you get a nice tone, it's not too obnoxious, not too loud, but when you want to get into it, it's lovely. Bump. Okay, that was fun, I'm not gonna lie. It's really interesting because you're in a very American car, but the sound, you can't really figure out what it is. It's like kind of Nissan-like. The days of the old V6 and the Mustang they're over. They were so bad. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you. But if you owned a V6 Mustang, you bought it just for the body style. That's all you got it for. You just wanted to say you had a Mustang for the most part. But the V6 now, the 3.7, is much more improved, and it's actually a platform worth looking at. Back in the day, if you didn't get the V8 back in the day, it was like, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing? Come on. But with the 3.7, the power is really evenly distributed, and it has a very light nose. So if you're going for almost a more handling kind of deal, it might be a better option. The entire time you're barely in it though, you just hear this loud whoosh sound, and it's great. To get on it again. It is a little wet outside today, so I'm being a little cautious because it's obviously not my car, but at the same time, it's common sense. I will say though, the tires on these things are ridiculous. Tires are Falcon 295s, so it's a big meaty tire on the back, and even when I got on it back there, it just went. It didn't even, no drama at all. It was great. So there's a lot of confusion, say, when Courtney posted the picture of this setup. It is not a turbocharger. Vortex, Paxton, and Pro Chargers are not turbos. They act very much like turbos, but they're basically more a belt-driven turbo, if that makes sense. So you're still considered a supercharger because you're using the power off of the motor to power the forced induction. So if y'all are wondering, this car is on completely stock bottom end. You just slap on the kit and bam, you have this much more horsepower. The jump is pretty ridiculous if you think about it. First pick up the car, you're making a little bit over 300 crank horsepower and maybe like 200, high 200s to the tire. But then once you go from that and put on the blower, you're gaining pretty much 200 wheel horsepower in a V6. So my hat's off to that. The Cyclone motor is a underdog, that is for sure. The people who created this supercharger kit were Tidal Wave Superchargers, and they're out of Virginia Beach, so they helped fabricate the kit itself. And there's the boost. So on an off topic, what I always was interested by is, yes, we have the EcoBoost now, which is turbo 4-cylinder, but I was always curious if they wanted to go turbo. I wondered why they didn't do a turbo V6 Mustang, because there's great cars in the past, like the Grand National, that use 6 cylinders and a turbo, and it's been proven that American cars can do it, but this feels like it could have been a factory Mustang. That would have been really cool if you had this factory. The blower's so loud when you let off, it almost sounds like you're going through a puddle. So even in the rain, I'm actually pleasantly surprised of how composed it is, because there's 255s in the front, the 295s in the back, so you do have a staggered setup. But with that, when you go around the bend, you think it's gonna start body rolling really bad. But with how much lower the car is, just because of the springs, it helped out a lot. So every time, just, yep. So you might have noticed in the interior, these are not factory seats at all. These are by TMI, and our buddy Wayland sells these seats basically. It's a kit. So what the kit is you take the factory seat and you make them really, really nice. So this isn't its own seat. You take the factory one, you reupholster it, you put better cushioning in it, and you just wrap the whole thing in different materials. So these ones in particular have almost like a 4GT kind of vibe because they have the little circles in the middle with the grabber blue. So it's all color matched, everything's color matched. So it's a really impressive kit. When I opened the door, I was like, yeah, that doesn't look tacky at all. I was really impressed. The installation process though, that's a little different. The back seats are pretty easy. They're pretty straightforward. Once you have the back seats wrapped and ready to go, you just unbolt it, slap it in, and you're good. The front seats though, it's a few bolts and everything else, but you gotta do all the wrapping, the reupholstering. Sometimes you might need a steam gun or something like that to get it to stretch to come over it. And also the thing on the back that readjusts the seat, it's a goner, it's gone. So rest in peace. But in the end, it's well worth it. Comes with everything, headrest, whole 9 yards. So I really have to give my hats off to Wayland, because every time I see TMI and every time I see Wayland at his booth, I'm like, man, I'd love a pair of one of those, and they're awesome. So another thing about the back seats is they're held down with Velcro, and apparently they're kind of hard to install with just the Velcro. So if you let it sit in the sun a little bit, that'll let it kind of bake in there and it'll work. The front seats though, just like I said earlier, they're a little bit tougher, and you definitely want 2 people to do it. One thing about Papi you will notice is that when you go straight, your steering wheel's not straight. It's just a little bit crooked. The alignment is a little bit off, but once again, easy fix, not a big deal. But for such a quick kind of build to do with this car, it's very factory feeling like, and I think that's the most important thing when you modify a car. Could it felt like this from the factory? But at the same time, you still have the thrill of it's a modified car, and that's also the important thing. Because you know, as soon as you put your foot down just a little bit, you hear the boost starting to build up, and that is wonderful bumps on the road. While we are in the V6 version of the Mustang of this year, let's talk about just what's factory. Honestly, the interior between this, the GT, and the Shelby, and the Boss are pretty much all the same. So if you're looking for just the interior, you're good. Everything's the same. The gauges are pretty much the same unless you have the premium package. But like, compared to say my interior or a base model Coyote interior, same exact interior. If that bothers you, then I am sorry. I dig it. It's so weird driving something grabber blue that's not like screaming the whole time. It's like a very subtle and smooth kind of ride. You just kind of sit back and you just go for the ride. But at the same time, it gives you enough of a pull sensation to where you're like, okay, this is something special. And go again. Brakes! Don't fail me now. And go. Alright guys, I hope that every single one of you enjoyed this quick little review video. I want to thank Courtney so much for taking the time to drive down here and let me drive Papi, the now notoriously fun Supercharged V6 Mustang. And I will see you guys next time, and take it easy. Have a fantastic day.